welcome to the Boopcast, episode 39. We are your hosts, SheNoob and...
Cory.
And joining us this week, we have a very special returning guest to the Boopcast, Mr. ThatKaitoDan.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me again.
Yes. Dan was on for last volume, and we loved having him on, so we wanted to bring him back this year. It's been crazy.
You couldn't keep me away.
Yeah, couldn't keep you away. It's been crazy the amount of people we've had on this year. That so many of you have been on before, and when I was messaging people before the volume started to be like, hey, would you be interested in the Boopcast? And there was a few new people I wanted to have on, and everybody came back with like, yes, I want to be on. Like, so overwhelmingly, yes, sign me up. It was really awesome to see that you guys want to come back and you enjoy the podcast. So, welcome back to
It feels
Dan.
like ages since I was last here.
I mean, what chapter were you on last year? Do we remember? Because I don't remember.
I can't remember exactly, but it was the one that had the talk with Ruby and Oscar. The one that had the keep moving forward mention. You should put that in the episode title.
8 or 9?
I think it was 20 for you, but in terms of like the number for the volume, I can't remember exactly.
I thought it was like 5 then.
Maybe.
No, was it 5? Because we didn't get the reunion until chapter 7. 6.
No, it was before Weiss came back in, but it was.
Then it was 5.
I just remember it being the one that had Oscar and Ruby talking.
Yeah, it was 5 then. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool. Chapter 5. Yeah, so it's been over a year.
And quite a lot of things have happened since then.
Yes, Volume 5, Chapter 5, thank you. Yes, so there is all of Dan's information. Go and check him out on his YouTube and his Twitter. He reacts to Ruby. He makes Ruby review videos, which are awesome. I do watch them. I just don't always remember to comment. So
that's perfectly fine. I'm happy with getting a single comment.
5 things at once, so... Yeah, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, Dan, for those who may not know you, and how you got into Ruby?
Well, yeah, like you said, I do Ruby reactions as well as reviews. I'm tiptoeing in other kinds of content, like recently I put out a theory about Oscar's semblance. I also do reactions to other stuff like Smash stuff, Nintendo Direct stuff, and all that jazz. You may also know me as the guy in Murder a Bird streams that always makes the bad puns. That's something I'm usually known for over there. But otherwise, I'm just another face of this fantastic Ruby family. Yes,
and a fantastic family it is. And we're going to talk about Chapter 10 today. And I just noticed my notes aren't even open. That's a bit rude. They were open a second ago. They closed themselves? I don't know. But I took notes this week. Are you proud of me? I actually took notes.
That's the 3rd time this volume?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm busy.
Yes, you are
better than me.
That doesn't always remember to take notes or have time.
This is also very early for you. So.
It is very early, so...
And very late for me.
Yes, it's almost midnight for you, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, just coming up to it now.
Yes, so we won't take up too much of your time today. We'll get through this nice and quickly. So chapter 10 was the chapter, and it was pretty good, and we need to talk about it. But before we do, we have a Kruby and a rewind to discuss. I think we're going to talk about the rewind at the end, though, aren't we, Cory?
Yeah. I figured with how much was in the rewind, it's better to wait till the end, because we'll just end up talking about the full episode in talking about the rewind.
So the Kruby this week was all about sort of rendering and the software that they use and compositing and all of the kind of things that could go wrong in that process. The one thing I did want to mention was the different programs that they use. So they use Maya, which is their replacement for Poser. They use Poser in volumes 1 to 3. And Maya essentially does pretty much all of the work that's associated with animating Ruby and with coloring it and with building the sets and all of that kind of thing, and with positioning the characters. That's what Maya does. Then they have Max, which is their cell shader. So cell shading is a process that they do once all of the animation process is done to sort of smooth out colors and to smooth out the lighting, and all of that sort of happens in the cell shader. And then they use Houdini for their crowds and their visual effects. And they showed a lot of the process of like how automated the animating process is this volume, which I've always wondered how much of it is automated, because I know that back in volumes 1 and 2 they did a lot of the animation by hand, which takes a long time and is why it's not very good. So the fact that they've automated a lot of this process now means that they get to do a lot more in less time. So it's... And I've wondered about that because I've noticed that there's been rarely a moment in Volume 6 where the animation hasn't felt quite right. But seeing that a good chunk of that process now is actually automated through the software, which is making time for them to focus on other things like fight scenes and more emotional stuff. I think... And
everything's flowed much nicer as well.
Has, yeah. Everything's more consistent and flows a lot better. And... I think a lot of people assume that for a show like Ruby, most of what you see is mocapped, but that's actually not the case. They don't mocap a significant portion of it. They will mocap interactions between characters that are close up and stuff like that, and they mocap more emotional sort of stuff and stuff that requires a lot of movement from the actual characters. But outside of that, a lot of it is automatically animated or animated by hand. They don't mocap the fight scenes either. There are some action movements that they mocap, but they don't mocap the fight scenes. So that's
no surprise there at all.
Yeah, that was one thing they talked about all the way back when they had their like developer diaries during Volume 2. That like the things that they mocap are like walking and little movements, and that the fight scenes are all done by hand.
Or to capture those like real character moments.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see that 2 to 6 they're still doing the same thing.
AC says they didn't smooth out the models last chapter for the Oscar dog pile. So that was not a mistake, and it's not a factor of time. Those are what you would call smear frames in animation. So the thing is that when you have something that's happening on screen that is so fast, they use what you call smear frames, where if you go frame by frame, the characters look retarded because humans don't move that way. But they can get away with it because when
that's
you're
why
watching
usually...
Sorry?
I was going to say, that's why you get all those, like, strange, like, Disney World gifs, where it's like the Gaston one, where it's like, his arms are...
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
all that flows much nicer. Obviously, when you pause it, you're going to see something that looks a bit gainish.
Yes, and but when you're watching it in 24 or 30 frame playback, your human eyes physically cannot see that. It's too fast. So that's why they use smear frames, because it means that they have to do a lot less work frame by frame to do something like that, because they dogpile onto Oscar so quickly that when you're watching it, you don't even notice. But if you go frame by frame, like every single one of those
did it
frames
as realistically
really
as like all the other bits, if they did it as realistically as all the other motions, then that whole like waving kind of motion that they did would look a lot more like out of place. I would say
strange,
whereas it flows as it does makes it much easier for the comedic sense of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's it. Yeah, that's something they use in animation. So it's called smear frames. To basically make motions like that, they have to break the laws of physics frame by frame, but you don't notice it in real time. So, yeah. Was there anything else you wanted to mention about the crew view, Cory?
Nah, not really.
No. Okay. So
unless we wanted to talk about the one for Chapter 9, because you and I hadn't watched that last week.
I didn't watch that one, but if you watched it, go ahead.
Well, I mean, that one was just about was about the mocap, and
was that the one that had the apparent spoiler in it?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why we didn't.
That was what. Yeah, that's a crew beat that I actually openly missed just because of that. I did hear like it was involving Adam, but I didn't know to the extent of it. And I obviously, me being a reactor, I didn't want to test that,
yeah,
so
we
I avoided that one.
Yeah, we didn't watch it.
Yeah, same reason we didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now that I've seen it, I'm very glad I hadn't, because it's very clearly showing a Adam versus Bumblebee mocap fight. And
do you think that was a technical gap, just like something that slipped through the pipeline? Because I can't remember who, but I think someone said that it could have easily just been them hyping up the eventual fight, which I didn't agree with at all.
I feel like it was a mistake to show us that.
No, the way that they showed it in the thing, because like the thing was they were only showing us the mocapped actors. They like literally computer screens and stuff were blurred out specifically for that, but it was still like showing enough that like the guy walking around with an Adam sword and there are two other actors standing there and stuff,
okay,
and like it's very, very clear what's happening there without actually seeing anything.
Yeah.
So that's why when I saw people talking about it being a leak or stuff, I was like, watching it looks very deliberate on their part.
Why would they do that, though? Why would they want to spoil something so huge? I don't...
Do you think it might have been like a misscheduled episode? Like they probably would have been better off doing it for this one instead of the one that we had just recently?
Who knows? But
no, because the thing was like the Kruby was split into like two parts, where one was like the beginning part where was like the Adam stuff going on, but like the talking that they were doing over that was mostly just about like the mocap process. And then the second half was talking.
So it might have just been misplaced or misorganized footage, but it didn't really structure. It wasn't for the structure of the episode itself.
Yeah, because then the second half was all about the way they mocapped for episode 9, which is the reason they put it with episode 9.
Right.
Okay.
So, but it's still like, well, they probably should have done something else in the first half.
Yeah,
but
not spoil something that major. I don't get Rooster Teeth this year. They seem so intent on spoiling everything for people this year. Like I
think it's just one of those situations where I think their backs is against the wall with having to be exclusive on their side. They have to promote the episodes for the public, but obviously they have to try and do as much as they can, but also focus on the crowd that has seen it.
Yeah, I get that they're trying to build hype, but there are ways to go about it that don't spoil all of the input. Like, Chapter 7 was a big one. I got majorly spoiled for Chapter 7 because of that post on Entertainment Weekly about Maria. And I was like, well, why in the fuck would you put this on a site, like, 4 days before the episode premieres? Like, it's a massive spoiler. And, like, they know that people react to their shit. We've been reacting to it since Volume 1. So, I don't know where their head's at with regards to them just being so adamant on posting so much shit on social media. I've noticed they've been doing it less as the volume goes on. But also because I've had the Rooster Teeth account muted since, like, Chapter 3. But, I'm just having to constantly go through Twitter and just constantly mute accounts because they're retweeting spoilers or posting spoilers before the episodes are up, and I'm like, I don't want to see any of this. And like,
I think it's just a situation where they're caught in two minds. They have to do some or both, and it's the cost they're dealt with. Unfortunate, but it's just one of those business things that does affect the consumer a bit.
Yeah, it's irritating as hell, and like it's a minefield out there on Twitter. I have to be like so cautious, even like 2 days before the episode comes out, that I'm double checking that accounts are muted and that the Ruby tag on Twitter is muted because I don't want to see anything.
No, I can imagine it's harder for you because of your time difference as well.
Yeah. Especially if like I'm still up at like 2:30 a.m. on a Sunday and the new episode's out and I forget, which happens more often than not. But you know, it's just frustrating that they seem so intent on spoiling every little thing about every chapter that comes out. And yeah,
I don't know if you're aware of this, Beck, but there is another like exclusive clip that's not related to the Rewind that was posted for some media source.
Why?
That
really?
Is out there.
I don't get this because the episodes are like 17 minutes average length. Why are you posting two 30-second clips? That's like 10% of the episode. Can you not?
Especially for this period of the volume where it's starting to get really intense.
We all know what's about to go down in the next chapter, and it's going to be huge. So, like, if I get spoiled for that, I'm going to be pissed off. So,
well, the fact that I've not seen it is at least a good sign, because I'm very knee deep in the promotional side. I'm aware of this thing, but that's the first I've heard about this extra clip. So if I haven't heard about it, you should be fine until the next time.
Well,
I've literally only saw it pop up on my Twitter once, and I went, "No, thank you."
Yeah, no, I have all the accounts muted.
And the good news with those kind of clips is they usually have it on a completely different link. You're not going to see it in your subscriptions as well, so that's a positive.
Oh, that's the other thing. YouTube recommending me illegally upload versions of the preview clips. Fuck off, YouTube. Like, seriously. Every single week this happens where I get recommended some twat has illegally uploaded the preview from Ruby Rewind, and it pops up in my recommended, and all I see is the thumbnail, and the thumbnail is always too much. And I'm like, The YouTube recommendation issue is a whole different kettle of fish. Well, how are these preview clips slipping through the block bot is what I want to know. Is it because they're only like 30 seconds, or...
It's the same reason why we ask why certain reactions block when some's not, and...
Yeah.
We can't really wrap our hands around it.
Yeah, no, it's just a nightmare. It's navigating a minefield to not get spoiled for Ruby, especially this volume has been particularly bad.
You think we'd be used to it by now?
You would think, but it's never been this bad. Like, even last year wasn't too bad. I only got spoiled for a couple of things, and they weren't major. But Dodge saying sometimes not even an hour after the chapter goes up, people have no restraint. Well, that's the fault of the internet. The internet has no patience and no restraint. Yeah. They think it's fine to just ruin things for everybody else, like 20 minutes after the episode's gone up. So,
yeah, this season I've been doing these kind of tweets where I just post my feelings in a GIF, but it's completely without context. And sometimes I do make a little extra post, but I still know that even in regards to the first exclusive audience, not everyone's going to be watching it the minute it drops. So
I certainly don't.
I
usually
pace myself.
Well, it comes out at 2:30 a.m. my time, so usually I don't see it until 10:30, 11:30, even later sometimes. It took me 3 days to see last week's episode because I was busy and working. So.
I was so scared for you. I was like,
I know, and like
I know you're so busy, but please watch the episode because hot damn.
I know, yeah, and like people were telling me you really like should watch this episode as soon as possible, and I was like, yeah, I know, but I'm busy, I can't. And
I know that affected Laura Lee as well.
Yeah, it did, yeah.
She was going to save it for later on in the day, but all the tweets about it just forced her into it, which at least she didn't get spoiled from what I know of, but it's one of those things.
Yeah,
it's just one of those.
I didn't get spoiled for chapter 10, thankfully, but yeah, I was just, and because I have to film a reaction too, I can't watch it when it's dark, because if there's no light, I ain't filming a reaction. So, yeah, I have to film it during the day, and I was just working, and I just couldn't. So, yeah, and that happens sometimes, but it's now that I've got all the accounts muted, it seems to be better. So hopefully I won't catch.
We should be fine for the next 3 episodes.
I hope so, because if something big gets spoiled in the next 3 chapters, I'm going to be pissed off, and I'm going to have to rant about it or something, because it's just ridiculous.
I mean, I know that we talked about this back when we had the episode 7 debacle where you and I both got spoiled for that episode. But like, I know that the reason that they do this is because like they are trying to push first memberships, because they're like, ooh, you can watch this episode, watch it when it goes live. Which is
understandable to a sense, but it's still one of those things where it's a catch-22. You're grabbing into a crowd that doesn't know the context of these things with stuff that is supposed to be eye-catching.
Which is unfortunately always a spoiler. So
and this isn't a thing that's exclusive with Rooster Teeth and Ruby. It happens with big cinema films as well with their trailers. They spoil everything in that. So it's one of those things.
Movie trailers these days are just ridiculous. Like, I'm like, every time I see a trailer, I'm like, I don't need to see the movie now. Saw it all in 2.5 minutes. So that's good.
The Spider-Man Homecoming trailer.
Oh, I don't.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I saw the Homecoming trailer actually. Before I saw the movie.
I did, and it kind of killed me afterwards. It was like, really? Come on.
I feel like the only company that is very careful these days, though, is Marvel, because they really don't want to spoil things for their, especially at this point.
Now.
Like, I watched the Avengers 4 teaser trailer, and I was like, that was 2 minutes long and showed me nothing. Like, I know nothing I didn't already know about this movie. How did they even do that?
Context is key.
Context is key. Okay, so we need to talk about this episode. Back on track.
Yeah.
So I really loved this chapter. I thought it was paced extremely well. And considering it was only 14 minutes long, they crammed so much into that 14 minutes. It's not funny. I was a little worried when I saw the length. I was like, ooh, that's kind of short. But they definitely pulled it off. There was just so much in there. So we need to unpack that. The only issue I had with this week was that the description of the episode basically spoiled the whole episode. But it didn't tell us. It just told us, heist time. Hey, we're gonna execute Jean's plan, but it didn't tell us anything about how they were gonna do that. So it was still.
Can we just talk about one thing first? Is this probably one of the best episode titles in the series?
I don't like it.
Oh, really?
I love it because I'm such a bad pun guy, but I love the fact that it's such a light-hearted episode title for what is the most intense part of this, really the second half of the volume, perhaps most in terms of it. I think it's it's one of the best joke titles, I think, since Dance Dance Infiltration.
Yeah.
Dance Dance Infiltration is one of my favorite episode titles
Yes.
from Ruby. But as soon as I saw it, I was like, really? I was just so. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. And again, the title, thumbnail, and description combination, I was like, I pretty much know what's going to happen in this episode before I watched it, and then I watched it, and I was like, I did not know.
we all knew that this plan was not going to go off without a hit.
Obviously, it wasn't going to go well.
It's a plan in a media. Those things never work, but of course, we had to wait and find out just how.
Yeah. So, from the beginning, I thought it was clever of them to use, because Cordovan was saying that she would be happy to escort Weiss back to Atlas. It was clever of them to use that as an in into the airfield. So they've just basically sent Weiss with Maria in a suitcase to be like, go steal that airship. We'll wait over here. They're all just standing on a cliff waiting for them. I was like, what are you guys doing? Are you doing anything useful right now? Not really. Okay. Just the 6 of you stand there. Well, the 5 of you, whatever. And everyone else will go be useful.
No need to overcomplicate.
No need to overcomplicate. Hi, Freelancer Amber. Welcome to the Boopcast. I never forgot what the thing was called. Welcome. So you had this question, I know, Cory, and I had the same question. What the heck is Saffron doing there?
Yeah.
Other than to create a distraction with Adrian. I was like, why are you here?
I like the fact that they did have that, not just in terms of obviously a backup distraction if needed, but I think if they let Weiss go by herself, it would probably telegraph too much that they are doing something, because if they at least have someone seeing Weiss off, it still has a connection to her team, and it's like, oh, we'll be there in spirit through Saffron saying goodbye for us.
Yeah.
So at least that's the vibe I got.
Saffron was a weird choice to me, but Adrian creating the distraction was, I was
like, Adrian's like the best, super baby I've seen in a while.
Mm-hmm.
I just love the fact that it's so animated, and yet it seems to understand as well. It's a very smart kid.
Yeah. I have to admit that for a split second, when he lets out that huge cry and that big shockwave goes off, I was like, is that his semblance?
I did too.
I was thinking the same thing.
It kind of had those vibes to it, where I was like, obviously it's not, but that's still kind of a funny way to do it.
We've always
not
wondered,
semblance anime.
Yeah. We've always wondered, at what age did Yang find out about her semblance? What age did Ruby and all that? And so the idea of a kid that young finding their semblance isn't really something that's unknown, or it's not
No.
really something that's out of the ordinary for us as fans because we've theorized it. But to see it in practice, at least a visual idea of what it could be like, is something that's pretty cool, even if it is more for a comedic bit.
Yeah. And we know that Ren at least was like 8 or 9 years old when he unlocked his semblance completely by accident.
Yeah, but
so
Adrian's much younger.
Adrian's like 1. So
That is a baby.
1.5 at the most. The poses he did, yeah. There was one little animation thing that I noticed where when it's like moves back to the two morons and they're like, a crying baby, we must console it. Saffron was standing there and Adrian was like on her shoulders, but she still had her arms out like she was holding an invisible baby. I was like, that looks funny.
I've seen that in anime sometimes where like the people that's being swarmed around, they're just in the same pose, but everyone else is just moving fast. I think there's a GIF that's got Ruby and Weiss doing that, and it's Ruby zooming around Weiss, something like that.
I don't think it was a mistake. I think it just looks weird to me. I was like,
it's for the part.
She's holding nothing. Yeah. Cordovan is the tiniest human being in the show. I thought Maria was short. Holy hell! You put Cordovan next to Weiss. Weiss is 5'1". She's my height, and Cordovan looks tiny compared to Weiss. I'm like, how freaking short is this person? She's like a hobbit.
I know some people's not really a fan of this kind of trope of old people that get shorter. It's obviously a thing that's happened in anime a lot. But I just love it because it's such a weird character point, but it just adds to it, especially for Cordovan, because it's almost a literal Napoleon complex from a visual standpoint, at least.
She really reminds me of Lord Farquaad from Shrek. Like,
yes.
Seriously overcompensating.
Yes.
But I didn't have a problem with Maria Calavera's height until I saw her in Chapter 7 as the Grim Reaper, and I was like, how did she shrink 4 feet? People don't do this. They don't shrink 4 feet.
It's an anime thing.
But, yeah, it's an anime thing, so I will excuse it, but I will not forgive. A lot of people are rather short with Cordovan. Get out of the podcast, AC. How dare you? God. Dan's here, so all the puns are coming out.
I'm sorry, I'm a pun magnet.
Yes.
That's my semblance. I'm a pun magnet.
Shrek, I'm looking down! Yeah, so Maria in the suitcase, like, as soon as I saw the suitcase, I was like, something's up with that. But I did not suspect for a second that they would put a human being in a suitcase, and especially not Maria Calavera.
Oh,
A weird part of me thought that they stuffed everyone in there, but then obviously that's a bit too much.
I did too, because when they picked it up and they were like, wow, it's heavy, I was like, how many people are in that suitcase?
It's not a tent from Harry Potter, guys. It's just a suitcase.
I think it's just me being a fan of too many Goofy cartoons where they always stuff them inside something so small, but they come out. It's the clown car thing.
My question is, was her rapier in there too? Because she wasn't wearing it. So it was Maria and Mertnaster just stuffed in this suitcase together. Like, that seems dangerous.
And her cashews. Can't forget the cashews.
I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit.
We'll talk about the cashews. But just, like, as soon as she started talking from inside the suitcase, I remember doing my ration. I was like, is she in there? Like, what the heck?
And it makes sense, because you can't really, like, leave her with everyone else. It's the best way to get her on, and obviously you need someone to fly the plane. That's not Weiss.
Why does she know how to fly the airship? Like,
she's the Grim Reaper.
Apparently that means she knows how to do everything, but you live long enough, I guess you learn a thing.
It's part of the Huntress exam.
Yeah. I had the same question, because Weiss asks her, how are you going to fly a ship? And she's like, I'm the best huntress. And I was like, okay, good. You're good at killing Grim. Can you fly a ship?
Apparently. But yeah, the 5 other guys, so Ruby, Oscar, Crow, Jean, Ren, Nora, so there are 6, not 5. They're just standing around on this cliffside. I'm like, are you guys going to do something useful? Oh, no, Blake and Yang and Maria and Weiss are doing everything. Okay. You're just going to stand there and wait for them. But
Taxi.
It's kind of seemed like they were just standing around waiting for everyone else to finish their jobs. But I really liked the bit where Blake and Yang were on Bumblebee riding towards the tower, and Blake's got Terracotta on her phone. That cracked me up.
Do not piss off Terra.
No, this conversation never happened. Like, obviously.
This is my first time breaking into Atlas security. That's not the thing you want to joke to Terra.
I know. I literally was like, Blake, you don't admit your previous terrorist actions to this person.
I mean...
And the cold stare afterwards.
Never happened.
Never.
Yeah, so I like that Terra is actually helping them out, and that Terra and Saffron are so willing to help them out.
I want to see them. I know we're not gonna, but I want to see the moment of the gang trying to convince Saffron and Terra especially to get on this, because I imagine Terra had to be severely convinced by Saffron to take part.
I'm kind of sad though that this is probably the last we're going to get to see of Saffron and Terracotta for the volume now, because I don't see where they could possibly come back into this.
I'm not too sure about that, but I'll discuss that in a bit later. But I can see a point.
Yeah, I don't really know, because I feel like this has gone wrong now. So as soon as they take down the mech, and they're just going to have to fly straight to Atlas. But I don't see why they would sort of hang around, considering what's going on at the moment. Oh my god, I need to talk about the scene where Blake hops off of Bumblebee and goes towards the tower, because oh my god, they're not even trying to hide this anymore. They're just like...
It's as subtle as Nora's hammer.
I know.
Yeah.
It's as subtle as Nora. But like, just the way she, especially like Blake is like, I mean, you're great, and I'll hurry back. I was like, oh my god.
The voice acting from Aaron on that is just superb as well.
Yeah, really good. But the look that Blake gives Yang before she runs off, I was like, really, Kruby? Wow.
I mean, those were straight up bedroom eyes.
Yes, they were.
You just needed the saxophone in the background to go.
Oh, that reminds me, I have to turn off my sound effects really quick before somebody does that.
Oh god.
I have that as a sound effect.
I like the fact that it's not just obviously a nice little bit for the Bumblebee ship, but it's also very good for their character as well, because obviously their relationship has been extremely strained as of late. That's a huge point of that already. But I like the fact that they're still so trusting of each other and so casual that they've almost kind of flipped roles, where Blake's the one making quips and Yang's the more grounded one.
Yeah, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, where they have seemed to really swap roles in their partnership.
Which says a lot about how much they've impacted each other's lives, even with all their issues now. So it's a good moment for obviously the people who support the ship, and even if you don't, you can at least see some really strong bonds and chemistry there.
Yeah.
That's also one of the things about the line that when Yang tells Blake to go, that it's so, I feel like that line is so important to their characters, because Yang's got her abandonment issues and Blake runs off a lot, but this was Yang saying, I trust you, you'll come back.
Yeah.
And such a simple way as well, just one word, but it says so much as well.
Yeah, Yang definitely, I feel like Blake is earning Yang's trust back slowly, but I feel like Yang has a lot of faith in Blake, but she doesn't necessarily trust her again just yet. But
they'll need to talk this out proper, but this is great baby steps.
They need to have this. This still hasn't happened, and I'm like, there's 3 chapters left. They still need to talk this out. They still need to address things. And Blake still needs to apologize, and like there are so many things between them that they just haven't had time to do. Sorry, there was something majorly in my eye right now. It's bugging the hell out of me.
I was going to talk about this later, but this seems like a great point to jump in, is that I was talking with quite a few people on your Discord about this episode, and a lot of people were saying that they think that Bumblebee is going to be like confirmed as canon next week, and you guys know I'm the biggest Bumblebee shipper there is, and I don't think so, because they have too much else they need to work on.
I'm surprised that you don't think so, because I do. I don't ship this. I have never shipped it. I'm not opposed to it becoming canon. Let's put that out there. If it becomes canon, cool, awesome, great for them. But at the same time, the only reason I don't like support this ship is because the fandom has ruined it. And they do with every single ship. They ruin them, and like Tumblr ruins everything. And well, not anymore, haha. But rip Tumblr. But like, just the fandom just takes it and just runs so crazily off with it all the time, and they just fiercely attack anyone who doesn't support their ship. It's like,
and of course, this isn't all Bumblebee shippers, but it's always the loudest that speaks over the quiet, but more calm and composed.
Yeah,
which is a shame because it happens not just to, it doesn't happen to just Bumblebee. I've seen it happen to all kinds of ships, but it is a thing that's kind of stagnated.
Yeah, it's just a fandom thing that happens.
And it's not just this show either. It's everything. It's everything in media. If there is a ship, you can guarantee that there are diehard fans who will literally murder your children if you don't ship it. And it's like,
I'm aware of that.
God, what's wrong with these people? But I have nothing against it becoming canon. If it becomes canon, that's awesome. Like, not just for LGBT representation, but it does make sense with their characters. I'm not opposed to it whatsoever. The only thing that concerns me is that at this point, if they do confirm it canonically, it's never not going to feel like fan service, and that is the fault of the fandom completely. That's not through the fault of the showrunners at all. But having said that, they've been queerbaiting the fuck out of them this volume. So if they don't confirm it, then the queerbaiting just looks worse. So
I think we are close to it, and me personally, I do like the ship. I don't like the sour side of it, but again, we've discussed already. I don't think it's going to happen this volume, but I think it's going to be almost within touching distance, and I think when that ship is cemented or at least explored, is also going to be coinciding with the talk that these two will have.
Yeah.
I think just for now, even though we've still got 3 episodes, I think there's still important things that they need to focus on right now that overweighs it. So I can see where you're coming from, Corey, but I just think for now, it's not the best time for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. I don't think that it's being confirmed.
No.
Like, I know a lot of people who think it is, but I'm like, they have too much, like, they are in imminent danger, and they, like, still have issues they need to work on before they can consider a romantic relationship.
Oh, I don't think it's getting confirmed next chapter. I just know that this is what it's leading up to.
I mean, they could easily end this volume with a kiss, but they don't actually explore the relationship until next volume when they actually discuss it. But it's like there's definite hints, but in terms of when and where, for now, I would say give it a bit more time because we've only just got these two back together.
Yeah, and they still have a lot of things to work out between them. So,
and I'm sure even those that do want the ship to be confirmed this volume will understand that, even though some of them might go a little bit too far. But again, that's something else.
Yeah, it's a whole other keg of
well,
fish.
I don't know. The thing I keep seeing is, at least from the like Bumblebee shippers I follow, the people who are saying Bumblebee's being confirmed next episode aren't Bumblebee shippers. They're just like people who are seeing the development, but then from the actual Bumblebee shippers I follow, they're like, no, not yet.
I will never understand this fandom. But
it's a case where I think some people are like, I wouldn't be against it if they did, but I'm tempering myself, and I think that's easily the best mindset to go in for anything, not just in ships, but in like, things that I expect to happen in terms of like fights or character reveals or debuts and all that. Temper yourself, but you can have those hype. You can have those things I would like to see.
I've never been against the ship being canon. The only thing with me is I haven't seen it that way until this volume. I feel like this volume they've been trying very hard to make it obvious, but at the same time that irks me a little bit because I would rather it not be so obvious. I would rather it feel a little more natural. It feels a little forced at this point because they have been so throwing it in our faces this volume.
Yeah. But like, I mean, as you said, you couldn't see it until this volume, though. So it's like,
I mean, I personally didn't see their relationship that way. Doesn't mean it wasn't there. Just means I didn't see it. So,
it's one of those things where it's like with like comedy or music where it's very subjective because it's your input on it and how you view it.
Yeah, it's subjective. It's all subjective until it's canonically confirmed. But
and then when it is, we can explore it then.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, moving on from that. Jean was being adorable when he was like, "Yeah,
my
it's
boy
all
is
going to
back.
plan." Prematurely
my
celebrating.
My boy is back.
Yes, I mean Roger.
Roger.
I've probably not made it like not as obvious as some other stuff, but Jean is probably the character that I relate to the most. And I've also been in the same position he's been in. Not in terms of like someone dying that I'm close to, but it's like I've been in those sour points before where I'm feeling very destructive. But to see him come back and feel stronger for the right reasons as well, it's such a delight to see. And it's not overweighing as well everything else that's going on, which is fantastic because I know that's been a complaint so far for Jean in the past where his story arc does overweigh other things.
Yeah.
So even just this small moment to see some of that goofball back is a huge positive, I feel.
Yeah, he's...
And again, and the looks from Ren and Nora as well, just like, yeah, our leader's back. We wouldn't change him for a thing.
And like I saw people talking about this last chapter with the scene at the end with Oscar where like it really felt like old Jean was back in that scene. And like the way he was manning up and being like, I fucked up. I'm sorry. That was my fault. And the way he talked about Pyrrha as well, just like really feels like he is healing very, like he really needed that moment with the statue because it has just like given him that closure that he never got and he so sorely needed. And like
I think this has definitely been one of his strongest volumes. Yes. I would say.
Yeah.
Which is weird because we haven't had him for most of it.
Yeah, it is weird. But I know that Miles was sort of hesitant to even like add Jean into scenes or give Jean lines because everybody was attacking him for like him being like, oh, Jean is a self-insert character. Who gives a fuck? Like, Jean's an excellent character. Who cares if he's like a self-insert, which he's not. Jean and Miles are not one and the same. Jean is a very different person from Miles. But they're like, oh, you're just writing yourself in because you want to be in your show. And it's like, no. And like, the fact that negativity directed at one of the writers possibly altered the story to the point where he wrote Jean out of things pisses me off. Like, we don't have the right, as a fandom of this show, to tell the writers how they should write their show. We don't have the right to do that, ever. We have the right to give criticism, make critiques, make suggestions. We have the right to say, we would like to see more of this, we would like to see less of this. But at the end of the day, the writing is not... It's not our right to write this show. That's not our responsibility. Our responsibility is to take it in, react to it, to critique it, to help it improve. But it's not our job to tell the writers their job.
And any issues you have in terms of the character, the way the show's done, or anything like that, you can have your issues, but never go for an attack. Otherwise, you're nothing but a bully. You're not a critiquer. You're not a reviewer. You're not anything. Do not attack the people behind it because you're not doing anything for the show's benefit or the person's benefit. You're trying to stoke your own ego.
Yeah, here are these people who are working tireless, ridiculous 12-hour days for months at a time to bring us this amazing content that we all love. And here are people going on social media and attacking them over the smallest things that isn't even the case most of the time. They're just utterly deluded. And, like, one person in particular comes to mind. I'm not going to name names, but Cory knows who I'm talking about. But one person in particular comes to mind. They have, on several occasions, attacked Miles directly, especially when it came to Volume 5. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, it serves absolutely no benefit to go to the runners and the writers and the directors of this show and say... What you did here was crap. I didn't like it, blah, blah, blah. And, like, not even saying I didn't like it, saying it was bad. Like, outright saying, this was bad, you shouldn't have done it like this, you should have done it like this. Your opinion's subjective. But the quality of the show is not. Quality of a product is not subjective. And this is what a lot of people get so, like, adamant that a quality of something is subjective. No, bitch, it's not. The quality of a product is never subjective. It is an objective thing, especially if you know anything about what it takes to animate, what it takes to render, what it takes to composite, what it takes to write, what it takes to do any of the process that's involved with making a show like this. If you know literally anything about it, you know that there's no such thing as subjective quality. The only time quality is subjective is when it comes to, like, things like character development. Some people cannot like the way a character's going. Whatever, that's fine. But when you say that a fight scene that is clearly animated extremely well looks like shit, you're wrong. And that's all there is to it. You're just wrong. Like, if we can see that it's animated extremely well, and there's little to nothing wrong with the animation, that is, and you are saying that's crap, that is not correct. And it's not your opinion. You're just wrong. I feel like people get
your opinion can be, I didn't like that scene, but your opinion can't be that scene was bad.
Exactly. You can not like it, whatever, that's fine. Don't like it, you don't have to like it, you don't have to not like it. But if you say it's crap, and it's clearly not, you're just wrong. And, like, I feel like a lot of people get so adamant that, like, I have the right to an opinion. No, bitch, you have the right to an educated opinion. Go educate yourself about what you're talking about, and then come back with an opinion. And if you still don't like it, that's fine. But don't say it's crap, because it's not.
Be constructive, not abusive.
Exactly, be constructive. And there's a major difference between having an opinion and having an educated opinion. If you have an opinion on something, but you very clearly don't know what you're talking about, or know anything that's involved with the process of making the show, because you don't do your research and don't educate yourself, you look like a twat. So stop doing that, because it just makes you look bad and does nothing to, like your opinion's just going to get ignored if that's the way you are. And it's like, so, like, Miles actually quote tweeted this person and said, this is exactly the kind of fandom, like, person that I hate. And I'm like, yeah, justified completely, because he was being a dick. But
he was also, the other thing I hate about that, I know what you're talking about, is that he was also misrepresenting Miles's own words.
Exactly.
To be like, Miles said this, and it was like, no, he said this. You're taking a segment of his thing and twisting it out of context to mean what you want it to mean.
And that's what people like that do, though, to suit themselves. And they don't care about the cold hard facts. They just twist and manipulate everything to make it look like how they want it to look, and they only see what they want to see. So at the end of the day...
And then they're not doing it for the show's benefit, they're doing it for their own.
Yeah. Side note, Rooster Teeth's Twitter leak is the same as Collider.com leak. Alright, well, I'm staying off Twitter for the next 24 hours.
Oh, Collider.com was the place that I mentioned earlier that posted the clip.
Okay.
Exactly, AC.
Cool.
Entitlement is what it comes down to. People think they're entitled to attack show creators because something didn't go the way they wanted to, and that is not the case. You are never entitled to do that.
Yeah. This works in very well with something I was going to bring up when we talked about the Rewind, but they had Issa back on for this episode of the Rewind, and anybody who watched season 1 of Rewind knows she was a big Black Sun shipper. She loves them as a couple, but she talked about how when asked about shipping in this episode, she said, whatever happens in RWBY, it's not my show. Whatever happens, happens. And it's like, that is the attitude you need to have about these things. Because, like, you can have an opinion, but your opinion doesn't, like, if the show doesn't do what your opinion is, that doesn't mean that, you know, the show wronged you or anything. It just means that...
And guess what? Just because a ship doesn't happen in the show, doesn't mean that it's dead. It lives on through your support and through fan works. I've seen so many ships still breathing and still living on strong because of fanfics, fan arts, everything. So don't live or die by canon.
No. And
well, the only issue I ever have with that, and I know this is entirely not what you mean, but my only issue is if characters are like later revealed. Like I'll use this as an example with Soldier 76 in Overwatch was recently confirmed as gay.
Recently, yeah.
You and I have talked about this a lot, and it's like before there were lots of ships with him and women, and those because of the time those are fine. But if people continue to like perpetuate that, I have some issue with that because it's like, well, the character is gay, so like it's a weird issue there. But I mean,
understand that completely. I'm just saying that like even if in that sense with Soldier 76, for those who support him in terms of straight ships, that's fine. Just obviously don't let your take on things overbear someone else's, even if it's not in agreement with the main canon. Just guys, just have fun with it, please.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a
just
fun
be respectful.
thing. It's supposed to be a fun thing, and it's supposed to be lighthearted, and it's supposed to it's like a lot of people, they are just really passionate about it, and they want to express that.
And passion's not a bad thing.
No,
just keep it in check.
Never a bad thing. When it becomes a bad thing when you use that to attack other people that don't agree with your beliefs. And it's like, well, especially if what you're shipping is the opposite of the canon, and then you go and attack the runners of whatever media that is, and say, and like they have personally affronted you. That's not the case. At the end of the day, everything is going to be like, and RWBY is going to be written the way it is supposed to be written. The way the writers and the directors and Monty even decided that this was going to go is the way it is always going to be. And there's not a goddamn thing any wanker on Twitter can say that's going to change that. So, stop.
Miles had that great quote from the Rewind a couple weeks back about how like they're writing the show that they want to watch, so it's their show.
Yeah,
it's not ours. We're just along for the ride.
Freelancer Amber says, "Preach." Thank you, girl.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, we as consumers and we as the fandom and we as the people who love this show and want to see it continue and want to see it grow and improve and develop and just so excited to see where this show is going to take us. We never have the right to attack the showrunners, to say that something that they've done in the show is wrong or is an affront to the characters or something like that. These are not our characters. And I think a lot of people feel like these are our characters. These are not our characters. These characters belong to Miles and Kerry and anyone else who runs the show, and first and foremost, they belong to Monty. Without him, none of this would exist. And I know that Kerry and Miles are doing absolutely everything in their power to honor his vision and to honor what he's told them of the story. We don't know the full extent of what he's told them, and I feel like a lot is getting left up to them. I know they know the main story beats and all of the stuff we've seen with Salem and all of that has been planned from the very beginning, and like but a lot of it is being left up to them, and so far they're doing a fucking amazing job. So I don't understand why anyone could possibly go to them and saying that they're like, I've literally seen people say that they are dishonoring on Monty's memory with things they're doing in the show, and I'm like, you didn't know him, they did. They know better than any of us what Monty would have wanted for this show, and they know better than any of us what direction the show is supposed to be taking and where the story is supposed to be going. And
those kind of comments aren't worth the headache.
No, they're not worth the headache. But I can only imagine how those kinds of comments must make them feel, especially because Monty was their friend, and they lost their friend, and now they're having to continue his legacy on without him. And I can't imagine how difficult that must be. Not like really like they must have so many times where they're like, what would Monty wanted us to do? What would he have wanted for this situation? And they're just doing the best that they can, and the best that they can, especially this volume, has been incredible. I have no qualms with where the show is going whatsoever. I've had issues with it before. I've talked about the issues I've had with it before. But they're issues that would have existed regardless. So, like, yeah. Anyway, that's my more than 2 cents on that.
Agreed.
The first one when the guy was pretty much giving me a murderer a hard time. Yes, Amber, I did see that, and that angered me very much. Memory's video about people bad-mouthing the RT community. Yeah. I'm not going to say too much about that on stream, but because I have a lot of feelings about that particular RubyTuber, but I'm not going to voice them here. But anyway, back to the episode at hand. Now that we've got that off our chests. So yeah, the scene on the side of the cliff, I was loving these sort of like interactions between the characters in this chapter. Jean kind of seeming like his old self almost, and then Nora and Ren's like simultaneous eye roll at him just being a dork was great. Crow is still pissing me off. Nothing new there. He's still being a broody bitch. Fucking Crow. Okay, I love Crow. I've loved him since we met him in Volume 3, Chapter 3. He's pissing me off this volume, and he needs to cut it the fuck out before I get really mad. Like, he is, every time he's on the screen and he's pulling those faces and he's saying his shit, I'm like, you need to stop. Like, you need to just stop being you right now and just pull your head in, for Christ's sake.
You're not the only one that feels that. I've seen so many people say the same thing.
Oh my god, he's being such a child, and I'm like, you just need to just get over it. Like, all of these other kids that are like a third of your age are just getting on with it, and you are just so hung up on this. I understand why, but at the same time, pull your goddamn head in, Crow.
The guy's really deep on it. It's going to take more than one rope to pull him out.
Yes, definitely. Welcome, Bartek. The bit where Weiss, like, she's watching it scroll for the signal to disappear. I like that the pictures on her scroll too were like volume 1 to 3 pictures of the characters. So I was like, that's interesting.
Upgrade your damn profile pictures.
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, they looked like Beacon School photo IDs, kind of.
They did.
So because like Jean was all like, and and it was just.
Oh,
I thought it was cute.
Times.
Plus, that was also when they got their scrolls, so
yeah,
it makes some sense that would be how that happened.
Funny you say that, because the only one of them that doesn't have the original scroll is Ruby, because she lost hers at the Fall of Beacon, and all of her pictures.
Well, there's another one now.
Well, Blake, yeah, now she's lost hers. But and all of the pictures on Ruby's scroll are from Volume 4. So, and from the character short specifically in Volume 4. So I love that, like, Weiss has never changed the, like, contact images, but Ruby, because she doesn't have the same scroll anymore, doesn't have those original ones anymore. It's just such a tiny detail, and, like, it's just cute. I just like it. I like that she, like, calmly walks off screen, and then we hear her beat the crap out of the two Tweedledum and Tweedledee 2.0.
I love we got that trademark, like, Weiss scream when she fights. Like,
yeah,
I can't, like, recapture it the same, but it's like,
I don't want to attempt it. I might embarrass myself. Yeah,
I can't do it either, but I just love that.
We actually, when I heard that, I kind of got flashbacks to Chapter 11 of Volume 5, because she does that right before her aura goes down, and I was like, oh god, don't do that to me. I don't want to hit, like, I literally have PTSD, like, don't. But
and at least it's such a joyful moment of just sending the guards out.
Yeah, I love that.
I feel sorry for them.
You just hear him go, traitor, off the screen. And, like, it's a clever way of, like, saving animation where, like, we don't see it, we just hear it. But, so we know that it happened.
We don't need to see it.
We don't need to see it, but we know that it happened. So, yeah. And I feel like Crow's acting like this for a reason, and Miles and Carey will show why. The reason is he's hung up on the fact that, and he basically explained it in this chapter, he's hung up on the fact that everything that he has done has been pointless. essentially. And I get that
and he
hung
feels
up on
responsible.
that. And he feels responsible. I feel like he constantly feels responsible for everything bad that happens because of his semblance, and that's just how he has gone through life. He's gone through life feeling
and that's something that's been affected him long term, so it's not going to be easy to get over.
Exactly. And it's like he's gone through life with this semblance and feels responsible for every tiny little bad thing that happens because he's like, there goes my semblance again. But in this case, it's not his semblance, but he's still got himself involved in all of this. To be fair to him, he didn't know any of this at the time. He was completely out of the loop when he thought he was in the loop. And I blame Ozpin 125% for that. But, well, I also blame Salem. But, Oz didn't have to be a lying little bitch. But, especially to someone like Crow, who he apparently trusts. Doesn't make any sense to me.
Well,
but anyway.
Well, I mean, like, with Crow, it's basically, like, he kind of, I mean, not necessarily to that extent, but he kind of, like, worshipped Ozpin. And it's like his entire faith is destroyed.
Yeah.
With this person.
I don't think Ozpin was aware of that as well. Just like how much Crow, just how much Ozpin giving Crow the time of day meant to him.
Yeah.
And that's why he felt so sad when Crow was talking about it. So I think that was kind of like a moment of realization for him. It was like, oh God, I've been doing so many bad things, but in terms of like Crow, I didn't know it was this deep.
Yeah. And I feel like Oz, for somebody who has lived countless lives, is so oblivious to people and like how they feel and how they're going to react to things. And like,
well, I like that because the guy like before, in terms of Ozma, he seemed like someone who didn't really have time to make stable connections with people because he kept on going from place to place, and that's why he was so connected to Salem, because that was the first true connection he had. And then every time since then, he's kind of been struggling with dealing with new relationships, new people. So that I can understand why the guy's probably not the best in terms of social interactions or understanding people. And obviously that's come back to bite him in the big way.
Yeah, and it will continue to do so as well. So Maria and Weiss on the ship. I love that when Maria sits down, she puts the seat up. She like there's a shot of her flicking a button to adjust the seat, and I'm like, that is hilarious. So it's like such a tiny detail, but it just like
she
cracks
must be
me up.
so glad there's no pedals.
I can't reach the pedals. And like the little device thingy that she puts into her eye goggle things.
Goggles.
I don't know what to call them. Goggles, sure. I was like, that's a little convenient. That she just happens to have a port that accommodates this tiny device when she got her eyes a good 25 years ago, probably.
I mean, it kind of makes sense because it is Atlas Tech. She's mentioned it before, but obviously it's a little convenient. But I also like the fact that we can imagine by the time this stuff is done with the airship, she's not going to have that same vision because it's very anchored to the ship. So when she's back on ground and everything's sorted, she's going to be back to her semi-blind self again, which I think obviously works for her character.
Dodge, I see you with the why are there 6 pedals when there are only 4 directions reference.
Yeah.
Shout out to Red versus Blue. There was one error in the scene that I noticed, which was when Weiss is sitting down initially, she is already wearing her seatbelt, and then she puts it on again.
Oh.
And like I didn't see it until the second time I watched it, but I was like, that is glaringly obvious. Kruby, fix maybe.
Yeah, after you pointed it out to me, I'm like, oh my god,
it's glaringly obvious.
I think it's one of those things. It's like it's an obvious motion for her to make as soon as she sits down to get herself sorted. But obviously, for the bit afterwards when she's put it on because oh god, I'm being driven by an old lady who's a bit out of her mind. It works for that bit, but obviously interconnected. That's a bit.
Yeah, just an error, something for them to look at fixing.
I get, not a mountain out of a molehill, but it's just something like.
I just like, and the fact that I noticed it on second viewing, I was like, ooh, fix. But normally I wouldn't get hung up on them fixing little things like that, but it was glaringly obvious to me, and I was like, but it's a continuity thing. But you didn't notice it at all? Yeah, a lot of people didn't. I pointed it out to Cory, and he was like, ooh.
I've noticed that us Ruby reactors and like reviewers, we're very analytical with this kind of things compared to the normal consumer.
We notice everything. But and it's interesting because we all notice different things as well that are wrong with scenes. Like Larissa sometimes notices things and I'm like, damn, I didn't even see that. Like the sign outside of the memorial that says new memorial now open. 5-6 times I watched that episode, never saw it. Until I watched Larissa's reaction, and I was like, I didn't even see that.
I remember one thing, like, from this volume where, like, I noticed the anime podcast the Rooster Teeth did. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it's like the logo for it was in the first episode when Ruby was speeding through the station. I noticed that, and then when I talked about it in my review, some people was like, oh, okay, I didn't notice that.
Yeah. And, we all tend to notice different things because we all look for different things, I think, in a scene. I am usually looking for continuity, so I always notice when there's a continuity error or when characters teleport in a scene or when the mise-en-scène is not quite right or the blocking does a strange thing where they switch from one side of the room to the other. I always notice. And it's glaring to me. Because I'm big on continuity and I want things to be consistent across shots, and when they aren't, it's really obvious to me. So I always crap on about the blocking and the continuity because I always notice when it's not right.
Speaking of things that do work and don't work, it was around this point that I was starting to think, oh, this plan is actually working out really well. And then...
That's when you know it's not gonna... It's all about to go downhill. Especially, like, the trope in any kind of movies, TV shows, whatever, is when somebody says, this is going to work. Don't say that!
I said it in my reaction to the thing, but it was like, Oscar said, it was like...
Yeah.
Work. And I think I said afterwards, famous last words.
Yeah. Oscar was like, this is going to work. And Ruby was like, yeah. And I'm like, no, it's not. Now that you've said that, it's fucked. You jinxed it. But, obviously it's written that way. But it's just one of those tropes where, if a character says, this is going to work, no, it's not.
Yeah. Plus, I was like, there's still 3 more episodes. This ain't working.
Yeah,
something's about to go wrong.
The jargon scene had me in fits of laughter. Because I was like...
I want to know if all of that is actually official words. I imagine it is.
It sounds like it could be, but...
like gaff off, or scrub, or whatever.
Gaff off. I have heard the term gaff off before. I don't know what it actually means, but I've heard it before.
The only time I've ever heard of gaff is when it's a British slang term for a football manager or something like that, or a boss. That's the only time I've ever...
A gaffer is also a sound guy in movies and TV shows. There's a gaffer.
I think it's also a British term for a house as well. So that's the only place I've heard about it beforehand.
Oh goodness. That scene had me cracking up. Weiss's like expressions and like, I thought you said you knew their jargon. Like, I loved her voice acting in this scene.
Jargon was fine, but our pilots are not old ladies.
Women.
I love that. It's like a sudden realization, like, touche.
I just loved all of Weiss's faces in this scene because you just like, she didn't speak a ton, but you can literally, when the guy responds with that, you literally just see her go.
Like, oh my god, like, yeah.
I'm surrounded by idiots.
Exactly. And, like, just the way she's, like, just staring at Maria, like, are you serious right now? Like,
And Maria just casually accepts it, like, oh, actually, yeah, that makes a fair point. I don't know why you guys actually let me do this.
Maria Calavera might be one of my favorite characters in the whole show, because...
It's easily one of the best newly introduced characters in the series.
She has been the best addition to this team for a long time.
And bless her voice actor as well.
I know. She just, every scene she is in, steals the scene from everybody. Like, somebody else could be having a huge, big moment. Maria says one sentence, she steals the scene. Every single time. I don't know how she does it. She gives no fucks, Pishin, exactly. And, like, you hear that, Cordo? That's the sound of me not caring! And I'm like, I fucking love
flipping cashews.
In that scene, actually, the way she throws her head back and the way her mouth is open, she really reminded me of Goon from Titan AE. If anyone's seen that movie, the little
God.
like, frog-looking alien, she reminded me of Goon in that scene. If
I
anybody knows what I'm talking about...
Yonks.
It's such a good movie too. If anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to post it in the chat. The movie is called Titan AE. AE stands for After Earth.
I love the fact that it's such a simple joke about cashews and how it affected Maria's relationship with Cordovan in the past. I love the fact that it called back and it just added to the scene so perfectly. Maria just adding stoke to the fire, Cordovan going over the edge, and Paul Weiss just going like, the plan's going downhill pretty fast. Can someone help?
Mm-hmm. Oh, AC, she absolutely specifically bought those cashews just for that. There's no way she didn't. But I love that.
Even if they didn't get caught, I imagine she did just to like subtly go like,
I imagine she
doesn't
bought
know
them
about this,
just so she could sit there and smugly eat them on the airship. Just like with the knowledge that she was breaking the law. Like.
I 100% think she had a plan to like take a selfie eating cashews and send it back to Cordo. Like, bitch.
Yes, knowing Maria, absolutely. Maria's chewing mouth is kind of gross. I mean, yeah, everybody's chewing mouth is gross. But
yeah, when you zoom it in like that, it's gonna be.
Can we appreciate she's so petty she bought the fucking cashews to bring on the airship?
That is a big bag as well. It's a big bag.
And I love too that as soon as we hear her crunching over the radio, I was like, I know exactly what she's doing right now. Didn't even need to see the bag.
Brilliant way to bring back that callback, but also just make it work and see the small way her Cordovan's mouth goes from like boasting to.
Yeah. The way that her face just transforms because she knows exactly what Maria's doing right now. So good.
I also like to think that in like everything that happens from this point on with Cordovan is literally just like Maria eating cashews caused her to just have a mental breakdown.
One of the main fights at the
crazy.
End of a Ruby volume is because of freaking nuts. I love that. We've had Grim, we've had bad guys, we've got flipping cashews has stoked a flipping giant mech fight in Ruby. What is this show? I love it so much. I know. You're gonna hate me for this. It is literally nuts.
D's nuts, Amber says. Oh god. Maria's got her own flight snacks. Yeah, she does. But I loved Weiss's voice acting as well here when she's like, Cordo's onto us, and Maria isn't helping!
Oh, God. I love it. I just love it.
And there we cut back to the people that are standing on the side of the cliff, and Ruby's like, we don't know what's wrong, Blake's not responding. Can you guys do something? Like, can you move? Can you do anything? Can you please get your asses in gear?
I gotta ask, at this point, did you think, oh, God, it's Adam?
No.
No.
We were
The moment Blake didn't respond, I was like, no.
No, I was clueless completely. I just wasn't expecting
I was starting to think it.
I didn't know what was wrong. I was like, oh, she's gotten herself into some kind of trouble. I wasn't expecting Adam at all, and I'm surprised at myself actually because it seems like everybody else was, and I just wasn't expecting to see.
It's the most logical one for me.
I just wasn't expecting to see.
I'm so surprised. I'm surprised you didn't, because you and I have literally been talking like every single episode this volume of like Adam needs to come back.
I know,
when is he coming back?
It took me by surprise. Like I didn't see it until I saw him, and I was like, I'm an idiot. Like that makes so much sense. And like until I saw
moments.
him, I was genuinely shocked. It took me completely by surprise, and I don't know why. I noticed this volume has the best food animated of all the volumes. Yes, it does. I would find it ironic if Cordovan was allergic to nuts. I think I was in denial too, Dodge. I just didn't think about it, and he took me utterly by surprise. And also, I think a lot of the reason is I didn't want him to come back. So I was just like completely in denial that he was ever going to show up again. And when he did, I was like, fuck. I was like, oh yeah, this guy still exists. Shit.
Yeah. Well, I had the feeling that I was because we've been talking so much about how like he has to come back, and I've been like, I want Adam to come back, it'll be so good for the story. And the second I see him in the show again, I'm literally like, never mind, take him back, I don't want him.
Yeah, I know, like the second I saw him, I went from going like,
you don't know
what's happening.
You don't know what you got till it's gone, but it's the opposite this time. You don't know what you want until it's here, and then you go, oh god.
And also that shot that it shows of his shoe, like, crushing her scroll, it was so fast the first time I didn't notice that it was his shoe. I thought it was Blake's. But it has a red sole to it. So I completely missed that. In my reaction.
I noticed it was Adam's immediately, but they did hide it very well by then, like, having it immediately cut to Blake running, so you do get the thought of, oh, that was her.
And that's what tricked me. And I also didn't hear him laugh the first time. I think I was talking. So, but he does actually chuckle when he steps on the scroll, and I noticed it the second time. I just didn't notice it when I was reacting. But yeah, it completely took me by surprise. And the second I saw him, I went immediately from, like, curious to shocked to, like, oh, shit. Like, immediately I was like,
pretty much.
Fuck, Adam, not good. Like, and now I'm just terrified. I'm terrified the bad things are going to happen. I'm like, I'm getting Volume 3, Chapter 11 flashbacks. I don't want anything bad to happen to my girls.
Which is pretty crazy considering what happened beforehand.
So yeah, back with the guys on the cliff. Crow is just like, he starts talking about how, like, oh, we've got 90 seconds before she scrambles her fighters, and I'm like, Crow, why do you think 90 seconds is long enough to have a mid-heist crisis right now? Can you not?
I know.
Like, honestly, shut the fuck up and get on with it. Like, he's literally, like, emoting right now. I'm like, you just said you have 90 seconds. This is not enough time. Stop.
Exactly. He's like, we have 90 seconds. When I was a child, and it's like, now isn't the time!
My daddy always told me, Crow! Seriously! Have your crisis later!
Crow is that one guy on the team project who doesn't put in any effort at all until the end, but he's the one who's most worried about the grade.
Yeah, exactly. That is a perfect way to describe him. And I'm like, literally my reaction, I was like, Crow, you cannot do this right now. You need to stop. And, like, Ruby's like, oh, we're all in this together. Stop talking like we're your responsibility, because we're not. And then,
And they did. She said one thing, like, we would have gone on to this mission with or without you. Yeah. They did. They left Padge without Crow until the Tyrion fight.
Yeah.
So that proves it as well. So it's not just her boasting and trying to flame up her own, like, status that she is capable. We've seen that, yes, they've not exactly been successful all the time, but in terms of their drive and the motivation to be on this journey, they did it and proved it.
And
even though you can argue that Crow gave her the push in that direction, because he was yeah, I hear that they're from Haven. Did you get that, Ruby? Haven.
Yeah, he wasn't being subtle at all.
But, like, even then, it was like he was just telling her, hey, that's where they're going next, and she took the initiative to be like, okay, we're going.
Yeah. The roadmap was there, but the incentive to leave, that was all down on Ruby and everyone else. And, again, he only said that to Ruby. He didn't say anything about it to John, Ren, and Nora, and they were all set to go.
And Crow asks maybe the dumbest question he's asked the whole volume. How did you grow up so fast? 3 words. Full of beacon. Do you really need to ask? Like, seriously, Crow? Full of beacon? Hello? Of course you grew up fast. All of them did. They all had to. Because suddenly they were thrust out into the world, especially Team Ranger. They were thrust out into the world. They had to make their own way to Haven. They had to grow up instantly.
That's one of those things, like, I think even Ozpin, like, one of the big things that he said in the past is, like, the kids need to enjoy themselves before the reality of the world hits.
Yeah.
The reality of the world hit them, and they experienced it. They've seen things that most people older than them will never experience. And that's one thing that obviously she needed to show to Crow. It's like, their age doesn't stop them from being capable of trying.
Yeah, exactly. And they are all adults now, technically, as well, except for Ruby.
Yeah.
And Oscar.
An adult at heart.
An adult at heart, yeah. And that's the thing. She had to grow up. And, like, being a team leader and literally watching her friends get killed will make anybody grow up really fast. So, but I was like, Crow, why are you, like, why are you asking this dumb-ass question? And then her response is, I had good role models. I'm like, bitch, you know that ain't the truth.
I was literally like, who?
I feel like, though, she's saying that
Crow?
more for his benefit than it is actually the answer, because it's not. But,
I know.
Yeah,
it's for the motivation.
Yeah.
It's like Taeyang's crazy, Ozpin lied to them, Crow's drunk all the time. I'm like, where are these good role models? I must have missed them.
Someone died when she was like 2.
Yeah, but she's saying that's like even past all that, the good that you have done is still something that I need and something that I've needed for so long.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that it's also obviously not fixing all of his issues. That's going to be a long drive to go through, like with his alcoholism, the stuff with his past and summer and all that. That's going to come. But at least the motivation for him to get back into the game and actually put in some goddamn effort. I'm glad that we finally had, and it wasn't just this speech, it was everything that's gone on previously this volume. Now felt like the best time for it to happen, and it works. And I like the fact that he's not instantly back to his charismatic self. He's still, okay, now I need to get back into this.
And,
Dodge, I see in the chat that Dodge asks that Ty is crazy. He sent Zwei to them in the mail.
Yeah, he's literally
and that was
insane.
the thing he did regularly.
He's literally... He's insane.
I wouldn't say crazy, but I would say quirky.
He's very quirky. He's definitely insane. And he had a baby with Raven, for God's sake. Like, how much more crazy do you get? Going from Raven to Summer Rose, like, from what little we know of Summer Rose, polar opposites. Yeah, Raven, exactly. One word. But the quote that you were talking about, Dan, is from Volume 2, Chapter 1, where Glinda says they're supposed to be the defenders of the world, and Oz says they will be, but right now they're still children, so let's let them play the part. It's not a role they'll have forever. And like,
yes, that is exactly the quote that I was thinking about as well.
Yeah, he knew that, and like he's seen this over and over again. Again, he's lived countless lives, and he's trained a lot of huntsmen to be. He seems to be
for all his faults, Ozpin seems to be the only one who's actually willing to treat these kids as people, no matter their age, and in this situation as fighters, as huntsmen, which is a bit of a fair credit towards him compared to everything else.
And to be fair to Crow too, Ruby is his niece, so he's probably never gonna see her as anything but a little girl and somebody that he needs to protect. But this is her being like, bitch, I don't need you to protect me. Right now I need you to pull your goddamn head in.
She's taken the leadership role back from him, which is so key for her growth, and I'm loving it so much.
She like, fuck Crow. She's the leader of this group now. Fuck Ozpin, fuck Crow. The adults are over here brooding. Ruby's actually taking the lead, and so is Jean as well.
And they're gonna need it for everything they've got to deal with now.
Yeah. Cordovan piloting the mech. Cordovan is the most stereotypical, crazy, fucking military leader.
Napoleon complex.
And it's amazing. She is just... she's...
The way I described it in my review is like, this is not just killing a spider by squishing it. This is setting the house and the town on fire to kill a spider. It's extremely excessive, but it's not just something that's, we want to have a mech fight. Here we go. Here's the reason for it. This is going to have so many like drawbacks to not just the situation with Ruby's group, but with Argus, the situation with Atlas. This is another stoke to the fire of a possible war.
Yeah. And it's like, the thing that the people of Argus must be asking right now is, why did Atlas have that massive mech hiding in their base? Like, what were they planning on using this for? And it looks old tech as well. Yeah. Like, why did they have this? What was it for? It's completely
different.
Plus, also, like, everything she's saying, like, she is projecting it. So, like, she's like, I will show the people of Argus why they need to fear us, basically.
You're talking about, like, strength and might when she's dealing with people who just wanted to hijack a transport. This is not this is not her defending herself and the kingdom from an act of war. This is just something that she could have easily dealt with a few number of forces. And even then, that's an issue in its own right. But this is overkill to the fullest extreme. But this is her ego and her pride, especially, which is she is the physical representation right now of Atlas. Ego, pride, and an unwillingness to be seen as weak. And that's something that's going to affect the team when they have to deal with it in Atlas, especially with Jacques as well, and Ironwood too.
Don't remind me
And
that
it's,
Shark's going to be a thing again. Ugh.
Yeah, it's a great sample test of what's to come. But obviously, for this situation now, it's an extreme overkill situation that is going to have huge aftershocks.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the thing that I'm now worried about is like, I mean, this is basically like Volume 2 all over again. Is Atlas is flexing its military might, and all it's going to do is cause a panic. It's going to draw, and it's going to draw the Grimm in. And so
this is also
I'm like,
this is also affecting from an Atlas perspective towards their biggest partner. This is them hiding a possible military secret from the kingdom that supported them in the Great War. And now there's someone who's trying to boast against one of their main cities. This is a huge oversight from Cordovan, but obviously her mental state ain't exactly brightest right now.
No.
So I think this is a fantastic element for not just the current situation with this story for the volume, but also everything that's moving forward. So it's giving something of worth to future chapters, and fantastic.
And she seems so adamant on being like, oh, make sure General Ironwood hears about how amazing I've
Yeah.
been. But ironically, I feel like he's going to, when he hears about this, he is not going to be pleased.
More and
It's
more now,
just-
Maria's
it's
comments
just
about,
adding fuel to the fire.
this is given actually some real support to Maria's prior comments about, oh, maybe they just shipped you away because you are such an annoyance. It's like, yeah, maybe that holds some truth.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everyone's going to be also saying, oh, possible like small advertisement for Genlock, which is just perfect timing.
I was about to say, because that is next on my
Yes.
notes list. As soon as I saw the mech, I was like, wow, really pushing the Genlock hard there, aren't they? The Genlock is strong with this one.
I'm sure it's just a perfect coincidence.
Yeah.
I don't know about coincidence. I think more convenience than anything. Like,
they talked
we
about
need
on
a
the
massive
Ruby...
thing for them to fight. How about a big mech? Because Genlock's about to be a thing.
Well, they talked about on Ruby Rewind how Issa said it was just a coincidence, and that the productions are totally separate.
No,
bullshit.
I agree, because if you want to go excessive with a military force, and especially one in terms of like pride and ego, you go big. And what's bigger than a full-on mech?
I mean, to be fair, Ruby had mechs long before Genlock was ever a thing.
Exactly, so it's not out of the blue.
This
It's just
is
the
not-
size of it and the excessive of it.
There is no way that there isn't an element of this that was not deliberate. There's no way. Somebody in the crewbie has gone, well, Genlock's coming up. Why don't we do this massive big mech?
Well,
this is a good idea.
Also, to be fair, Genlock's not going to be the first mecha out there that has a person
God, no.
inside controlling
God,
it.
no. That's existed for decades. So,
And obviously, big suits aren't exactly uncommon for Rooster Teeth as a whole. So it's just one of those things. It's like, Rooster Teeth, we love you, but god damn it.
I want to see Ironwood shred Cordovan for this action. I don't know if we will see that, but it would be amusing. The way the mech, like when the ship's like flying and the mech is like following it, just casually strolling through the ocean, I was like, how deep is that water? Why is it just casually
it looks like
it looks like
it's like
2 inches
this deep.
Yeah, silly.
Well, they are right next to the coast, so I imagine it's not too bad. I've seen in some places where the cliffs are that high, but they're also really deep. Not really deep, really shallow. It's just obviously that works for the set piece, but yeah.
Just yeet the tiny old lady into the ocean. Yeet! Get out of here, Cordovan.
This bitch is empty. Yay!
Yeet! So Adam's scene at the end. Yeah, we already talked about his shoe and that he was crushing the scroll with his shoe. His blindfold. So there's a lot of talk going around about his blindfold. I am personally with the theory that it is one of Blake's old ribbons. But
Same.
The only hole in that theory is that we literally saw her drop it into the ocean. Did he jump in and fish it out? Like, if he did, that's weird.
The vibe I got is it could be the weapon that he knocked out of her hand during the fall of Beacon, because we never saw her go back for it. And
I mean, she still has it, though. I don't think she would have got a new one forged in such a short amount of time.
Maybe, but I think it's just one of those things. Like, it could even just be an old ribbon from their days in the White Fang. But
no, actually, I went back and watched it, and she was wearing the sword when she was running away with Yang. It was on her back, so Yeah, because I remember being confused about that as well. But yeah, the old ribbon, I don't know which one it could possibly be.
I know. My thought is just that she used to, like, in her old outfit, her arms were just ribbons. It's like, who's to say that there isn't a segment of that came in somewhere else?
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where you don't need to look deep enough to it, but obviously you can have those questions. But in terms of like the style of it, the color, the aging of it, we at least we assume what it is.
Well,
it's just
I haven't read the manga, so I don't know about that, but I have it. I just haven't read it.
Plus, I've also seen people say that maybe her and Adam used to like their ribbons were like a romantic symbol between them.
Oh God, I didn't know where you were going with that. I was like, is he going in the BDSM direction with this?
Oh no, God, no.
That's a mental image.
I was thinking the same, but I didn't want to voice it.
Listen, we don't give a fuck on this podcast.
Way in the past, they reenacted scenes from Ninjas of Love.
Okay, alright, yep, that's enough. Let's move on quickly. Yeah, so he basically confirmed here, like, he's saying, like, I've waited so long for you to be away from them. So, he's definitely been stalking her this whole time. For how long? So, definitely since the beginning of this volume. Easily.
From what I can track, it's... The scene that is definitely not him is the scene at the Brunswick Farms, because he was wearing the mask.
Yeah, that was Yang hallucinating. But the scene in the first chapter of him on the train, I went back and watched the first chapter, and one thing that I found very interesting is he was wearing his hood and it was covering his eyes.
I think that's
I think that was actually him. And
I brought this up on the first episode too, and you were like,
I just thought it was Blake just being, Blake and just having a moment. But
I think the reason why they had the hood up,
I think it was actually him.
The reason why they had the hood up was likely to cover up the fact that he was wearing a blindfold this time for this moment specifically.
If he had been wearing the mask instead, I would have been like, nah, illusion. It was definitely him.
And because of this, I've also had some people, because I mentioned in my review that it's weird that we had this scene and him wearing a blindfold for this, but obviously in the scene from the first episode of this volume, he was still wearing a mask at the White Fang base. And I've had some people say, like, oh, maybe the scene from him at the end of the character show where he throws the mask away is from after the scene at the White Fang HQ, which I don't agree with at all, because it's the same forest setting.
No.
He's hobbling like he's just been like in a fight. Obviously, he got bumped in the head. And it just doesn't make sense in terms of like, we'll show a scene afterwards that will affect the main story. It doesn't make sense. It was affecting a scene from prior events.
So the question now remains, why did he ditch the mask in favor of the ribbon?
I think it's just him abandoning the White Fang. He's going at it alone. He's not doing this now to attack Blake. It's not a case of him going for the people that she loved, like she mentioned in the Fall of Beacon. This isn't him trying to use his White Fang forces against Blake's. This is strictly, I'm going directly to you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make you suffer.
It's less about humanity and more about Blake now.
I agree. His priorities now have shifted from the White Fang to specifically his God, what's the word? His
vendetta.
Vendetta, thank you, against Blake and his obsession with her.
And there's no like mind games or slow torture. This is a direct attack. And even if it is a case of him stalking her all the way and baiting her towards it, this is now a case where
he knew he couldn't take on like 9 people by himself. That just wouldn't happen.
That's the same reason why he didn't. That's the same reason why he didn't attack her on the train, despite being alone at that point in time, because there was everyone else. It was on the train, and there was the Grim. And it makes sense why he's doing this now before they get into Atlas, because it might be difficult for even him to get into Atlas.
Yeah. Well, Dodge, I don't think he got another mask after ditching the one at the end of the shore. I think he went back and picked up the same mask. But now he has ditched it altogether.
He could have had another one, but the reason why he had that mask on during the White Fang scene was to maintain his intimidation persona as High Leader. That was him focusing on Blake at that point. That was him as the High Leader.
Yeah.
I honestly think that it could just be like sort of a continuity thing, and they didn't have his new model with him in the blindfold yet,
or they
in the
didn't
ribbon,
want to show it to us yet,
or they didn't want to show it yet. So maybe in like the DVD release, they will have changed his model out for that one, or they'll have him with like the hood on or something.
I don't see them doing
think,
that. I feel like there's a reason he stitched the mask in favor of the
it's the same reason. I think it's the same reason why they had the hood up for that scene on the train, because they wanted to hide this for that moment in this episode. But I think in terms of like the timeline for things, I think it is kind of obvious when you look through it. But I think some of them who are a bit confused by it would be at least understandable.
And
but
again,
the context is there.
Those two Adam scenes were in the same chapter. So we know that like the first scene of him at the White Fang Hall probably happened pretty much straight after the end of the events of Volume 5. And it's been a couple weeks since then in Ruby's timeline. So in Team Ruby's timeline. It's all out of sync.
I'm just trying to make the scene at the end of the Adam character short make sense. All it is.
It doesn't, and it never will.
I hate that the Adam character short exists, especially like the more we see this volume. I'm like, ugh, it just throws so much out of whack.
I know.
It did cause a few more questions, which is a bit of an upset, but I still liked it.
I really don't think they thought it through completely with, like, why is Ilya there? It makes no sense that Ilya's there. Like, the timeline for the Adam character short is all over the place. Like, Ilya would have been, like, 12. He's like, come on!
I think it was well-intentioned, but obviously things didn't work out.
They didn't think it through. And I feel like that a lot of the time they had characters in there just for the sake of having them in there. Gira, Sienna, Ilya.
Yeah, no, Sienna definitely.
Yeah, just for the sake of them being there. And Ilya was literally just a fill-in. And it makes no sense that she's in there whatsoever. But I don't think she even joined the White Fang until after Gira stepped down. Like, I didn't think that was the case before this short. And now I'm confused. So, like, it just doesn't make any sense. And I don't think it ever will.
But I'm glad at least that we've moved on from Adam and the White Fang to just strictly Adam. Yeah. For at least this bit.
I think they did away with the White Fang arc way too soon, though. They could have done a lot more with it, and it just kind of disappeared with no real resolution and no consequences. So
maybe, but I think we're good on that part for now, because I think I'll mention it a bit more in a bit. But I think for Blake in the next chapter and the stuff with Atlas is going to focus on her sorting out the fairness discrimination there with Atlas and the SheNoob Company, which isn't exactly exclusive to a White Fang issue. But I think for now we can move on from White Fang stuff to the actual fairness discrimination. At least I hope that is the case.
Yeah. So Adam used his negative attack here to like cut the wire down.
The noob slice.
Yeah. We haven't seen that since Volume 3, obviously. That scene.
Outside the character shorts.
That.
Oh, yeah.
That thing that happened. Yeah, so it was good to see that again. I still don't understand how it works and how semblance works. I don't know.
It's one of those things that is a bit unexplained, but I like the fact that he did use it here for just the simple thing of trying to stop Blake from escaping, which shows his severe intent. Like, no, you're not escaping this. This is going to happen right now, and I'm not letting you run away again.
Yeah, and he even like says, like, I let you go once. I'm not making that mistake again at the end. Blake's fighting animation here I felt like was really good. Definitely way better than it was in Volume 5. Volume 5 was but it's still annoying me that she's not fighting two-handed. Like, she has another weapon. Why isn't she using it? And like, she fought very exclusively two-handed before. She's never really fought one-handed, so it's always bothering me when she's doing it. And I know
I think it's okay for now because she's kind of caught in 2 months of escaping, and she might need a free hand to maneuver around and try and get. Because she did use her ribbon at one point to swing away and then swing back in to at least try and get in and get out. But no, I can see your point about how she could be fighting, but at least for what we got, especially for such a very short fight, this was really damn good stuff.
Just a reminder: don't talk about the preview. Getting in before anybody says anything.
Yes.
Yeah, the choreography was okay, and the animation looked really good, and it didn't feel nearly as weird as the Blake versus Ilya
And
fight.
it was intense as well.
It was very intense. I was really scared the whole time. Like, every time he got
Oh,
close
God.
to her or hit her, I was like, stop! Like, get away from him! I was like, just get away from him, Blake! But
that shot where he fires his sword and it hits her in the face.
And it hits her in the face.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Ooh.
I don't know if it was the sound
every time
effect
I
or the visual or both, but holy hell, I felt that. Like, I was like, oh god. I was like, this whole
He
fight
didn't need to
scared
do
me.
it like that as well. He could have easier just gone in for like a sword strike from the side, but to do that is another intent of aggression that is just it adds perfectly to Blake's sort of I can't think of the word off the top of my head, but it's like Adam's intensity versus Blake's
Stoicism?
no, it's like fear or something like that, but along with that kind of sense. It's a perfect mesh of the two, with Blake escaping, trying to just survive, and Adam just going all in as much as he can, especially with the scene where he grabs at her throat. There's different ways that he could have attacked her, but to go for the throat just shows the vicious intent that he's going for.
Yeah.
I just also, my only issue with this fight is I'm like, Adam teleports all over the place.
He does.
Like, we see Blake like having to use 3 of her clones to like jump up to the next level, and then she's like, "Where is he?" And he's like, "Behind you, bitch."
There, yeah. Especially
and it's like, how did you get here?
That bit at the end where like she jumps up to the top level and then he immediately grabs her by the throat. I was like, you were 2 levels down 5 seconds ago. How did you get up there so fast?
we know that Adam is a very agile person, especially as much as you might not like it with the Adam short. He is very agile in that, and his maneuverability is pretty damn good.
Yeah. I don't understand how he got up there 5 seconds flat.
Speed of him is a bit questionable. It works for the shot, but obviously it's something that's like, when you think about it a bit more, it's like, okay, how did he get from there to there?
Yeah, I mean, we see how Blake gets up there, but then he just suddenly appears, and I'm like, how did you get up there? Like, how did you get up there so fast? Cats always land on their face. So I had a heart attack when they fell off that tower. Like, I literally almost was deceased on the spot. I was like, oh my god, that's gonna break their aura or kill them. And how did
anyone
it
else
not
thinking
break their
bad
aura?
landing strategy?
Landing strategy. That's true. I didn't even think about that. I have trained for this moment. I know what to do. Give me a tree.
I was just thinking of that because of Ruby falling through from the first episode of Volume 4.
Yeah.
Bad landing strategy.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that either. But I'm like, how did this not break their aura? And like, Blake's been hit a couple times before that point. So I'm like, how?
She's also been using her semblance like crazy.
I was 1,000% expecting both of their auras to break when they hit the ground, and it didn't. And I was like, how? Okay, sure. Didn't think aura could take falling from 20 feet through trees. Sure.
I think in any other situation they would have done that, but I think for this climactic fight, I think the moment that the aura breaks is going to be a specific like moment, and it will work for the story.
Left. Like,
no,
neither of them can have a lot of
it's
left after that.
It's nearing, especially after everything that they just went through and all the like heightened emotions and all that. But I can understand why it didn't break.
Yeah. Well, I just thought it was strange. I was like, I don't know how that didn't break their aura. I've seen people's aura in the show break from a lot less. Like, I thought Maria's aura broke too quickly. And, like, I know that people have varying levels of aura, but, like, we've never seen Blake's aura break, actually. And we've never seen Adam's break. And we don't understand how his aura works, so...
we also got to think that that these characters, as huntsmen and huntresses, they're a lot more durable than most people. So even like the idea of falling through a tree would normally be extremely painful for us because we're not physically capable of managing something like that. For them, it would probably be something that's painful, but not to the point of breaking something. As long as you got the aura and the physical capabilities.
Yeah. AC, do you guys think they'll pull a Volume 3, Chapter 11 twist where they'll do a fake out with someone getting body parts cut? No, I don't think we're going to... Volume 6, Chapter 11 is not going to be Volume 3, Chapter 11. There's going to be a lot of parallels.
Or Volume 5.
They are going
Volume 5, Chapter 11.
No, they're talking about Volume 3, Chapter 11, when Yang got her arms sliced off.
Well,
yeah, but
11,
but in volume...
11's when Weiss got impaled.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, like, they're
no,
not
but
gonna...
like in terms of like in terms of like bodily harm or like huge cliffhanger moments in a fight, that's when I'm like suggesting.
Chapter 11 has that theme.
Chapter 11 has that theme, but they're going to draw a lot of parallels to Volume 3, Chapter 11 in Volume 6, Chapter 11. But I think that this is going to play out quite differently.
Especially with Yang still to come in.
And I'm strongly adamant that we are going to see Yang use her semblance for the first time since then in this next chapter.
Yeah.
And I think that Yang and Blake has held her own against Adam up to this point. So I feel like the two of them together, knowing what he's capable of and having faced him before and lost very severely, I feel like they are going to be a formidable force together against Adam, and I think he's going to be in for a run for his money. But
I don't think Yang's going to be fully capable the moment that she sees Adam. I think there's going to be a moment of hesitation and fear, and Blake's going to have to try and ground her back down, which is going to be very emotional.
She's not going to have her head, not right away. They will subvert our expectations. That's the thing. We'll be expecting one thing and they'll do something else with it. I am like, I was talking to Larissa on Skype the other day and I was like, please tell me this means Adam is dying this volume. Please kill him. Please get rid of him. I've had enough of this horned bitch. Get him out of my life. Get him out of my Ruby. Fucking kill him, please. Oh my God.
Any other situation or setup, I would say, nah, he's got his length is still there. But if the severity of how aggressive he's going towards Blake, that shows that it's kind of like a last stand effort.
Yes.
The possible avenues of where Blake's character can go in the future, again, with the stuff with the fairness discrimination and Atlas, that's going to be a huge arc for Blake to undertake. I don't think Adam can carry on and be a vital part of her story or even be saved until the future, because this is such a strong moment right now. And thirdly, it just feels like there's no other way they can push this fight any further. If they leave the end result of this fight to another volume, I think it's going to lose its impact. For right now, in terms of like where it can take Blake and Yang's character, for where it can take their strengths and their emotional centers for what's to come, they need this to finish now. And even if it's a case where Adam survives and we never see him again, which I very much doubt.
Lame. I hope they don't do that.
there's an aura of finality to it, and no matter how it happens, it needs to.
Yeah.
And I think even if you don't like Adam as a character, for his role as a main part of these two Blake and Yang's characters, this is the next step that they need to take. And I think this is the best time to do it.
Adam has outlived his usefulness as a character. The only purpose he now serves, there's no more White Fang, everything, all of that is gone. The only purpose he now serves is for Yang and Blake to fuck him up. Because they need to, because they deserve that and they need that. And he has wronged Blake basically her whole life. He took Yang's arm. They need some goddamn revenge. And they need to get that. And I'm going to make a wild prediction and say Adam's dead by the end of Chapter 11. If he doesn't die in Chapter 11, Chapter 12.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to say 12.
And I need to see the runtime for Chapter 11 before I back that up. But I am calling it now. Adam is dead in Chapter 11.
The moment that we see the thumbnail, the episode length, and the episode title,
and
obviously by some time, and the description, I think sometime tonight, or for me when I wake up in the morning, the moment we see that, we're going to have a better scope of what may happen in the future, especially in that next episode. And I'm not going to lie, I'm nervous as hell, because, I mean, I doubt Blake and Yang's going to die. That's a very, very small percentage.
No,
they may get some severe injuries, like a wound or a scar or something like that. I don't think Yang's not gonna lose another arm, but I would easily see Blake maybe getting another scar or something like that. But in terms of what may happen for their characters, I'm super excited to see what happens, because that's going to be a huge part of their character for the rest of the series.
I think, as much as I hate to say it, Yang got maimed in Volume 3. Weiss got maimed in Volume 5. I seriously think that Blake is going to get mortally wounded by Adam in Chapter 11, and then Yang is going to be the one to kill him. She's going to fucking soccer punch him off a cliff or something. But Blake's in trouble.
I don't think it's going to be like a huge part of like the fight or their emotions, but purposely, I would kind of like the idea that one of Adam's slashes might cut off some of Yang's hair, might even make her short hair. Because I think it's a trope where you cut your hair and you move on to a stronger part of your character. I can imagine, like, in the middle of the fight and everything else that happens in terms of, like, other injuries or the way Adam may potentially die, if Yang loses her hair, even for a small amount of it, so even, like, say, shoulder length or something like that, I think that would be a neat way to introduce that new element of her character, but also be a pretty pivotal moment for this fight.
Yang with short hair would be weird.
Yeah. Oh, God.
She's Goldilocks.
Every single short hair Yang I've seen in fan art, I've adored, because I like short-haired girls. That's one thing. I also really like Yang. She's probably my favorite female character in the show, next to like Velvet and Pyrrha. That would be such a great way to introduce that as a plot point character and make the change fit into the scenario and not just be, you know what, suddenly today I feel like a change. No, actually have it some way involved in the events that's transpiring would be a neat transition.
Dishwasher 1910's Ruby 3.0 immediately comes to mind, because Yang has short hair in that art. And she looks fabulous, and I love it. But I don't know how well it would work in the show itself, just like from a model and animation point of view. Because every character that's had short hair, they've kind of all looked the same. Like Amber and Maria have basically the same haircut.
I can imagine, like, say Ruby's haircut is very straight and like curved. I think Yang's one's going to still keep her waviness, but it's going to be more like a semi bob cut, or again something like Dishwasher's one. And I think it actually would be a nice way to implement the future changes as they go into Atlas, because I imagine in Volume 7 they're going to have some new clothes to better fit the much colder climate there. Yes, so having the new hair also go into her new clothes for that would be pretty solid.
Yang uses her rocket arm to knock Adam off a cliff. I am on board with that. Like, just imagine if she just, like, grabs him and just rocket punches him off a cliff, and maybe even loses her arm in the process.
I can't remember where I saw it. I think it was on Twitter, but I saw something like Yang and Adam fall off the cliff. Blake grabs onto Yang's arm. Adam is holding on to Yang's other arm. Yang dislocates that arm. Adam falls into the drink below.
There's going to be something like that probably that's going to happen, and she may even lose her arm in the process. Which no biggie. She can.
People point out that
they're on their way to Atlas. She can just get another one.
They're on their way to Atlas, and in episode 1 of the season, she was looking at prosthetics.
Yeah, if she's going to lose her arm
in the magazine,
because they're headed to a place where she can just get another one. Is the Corner of Remnant live? Awesome. We'll be wrapping
the Corner of Remnant
shortly.
just went live.
Dodge says, I don't know, Blake got impaled in Volume 3. Yeah, but it didn't do anything. There was no consequences for that. She didn't even really seem that bothered.
There's some people I follow who are actively looking out for any glimpses of that scar on her model.
It's not there.
It's there sometimes, but it's very small.
I've never seen it once. Not once.
It's always hidden under her jacket.
I've only seen it like when I've screen capped stuff for my reviews. Before we start to wrap up, I got one question to ask. Do you think anything else is going to happen in terms of like another fight? Because we got the mech fight with Cordovan, and we got the stuff here with Adam. Part of me thinks that's not enough to last 3 more episodes.
No,
I think there's going to be one more, and I generally think it could be Cinder and Neo doing something in August. But I don't know where that comes in terms of like the translating of the timetable, because they were like 3 weeks behind. I don't think there's been enough time since then. But it just feels like we can't. I could easily see the fight wrapping up in episode 12, But then, would there be enough for episode 13 to be a big enough episode to end on? Because they're usually about nearly half an hour to be an epilogue of just getting all the way to Atlas. I feel like that stuff is going to be episode 1 of volume 7. So I feel there's need to be something else going on. And as much as I'm worried for Saffron, Tara, and Adrian, I'm worried about August because I feel something's going to happen there while everyone, especially Cordovan, is away from the city.
Yeah. And that's a good point. We still haven't seen the big kaiju grim that's on the poster yet either. So that's got to show up at some point.
I think that was the Sphinx from Volume 1.
Wasn't that the Sphinx?
Yeah, because it's got the rounded forehead.
Yeah.
And...
Raven versus Titan.
I think that they're with the shots they were setting up of Cordovan addressing the people of Argus. I think that they're going to be attracting Grimm, and they're going to deal with the mech, and then they're going to have to help the city.
Oh, I just had a thought. Obviously, they sort out the main gang. They sort out the fight with Cordovan. That stops. They see the Grimm going into August. They obviously need to get in there to protect Saffron and everyone. Maybe that will start to convince Cordovan that, okay, you saved the city where I failed. I'll let you go to Atlas with a bit more support. She's still a bit of an egotistical bitch, but what are you going to do? I want, if that is the case where that happens, where Jean, while trying to get ready to protect Saffron, comes across Pyrrha's mother, the redhead woman, and he saves her. So even it's just a small moment of just helping out her, and even if it's just moving on for the next stuff, that would be a great moment of Jean helping her out and giving something back towards Pyrrha.
I don't know if we'll see her again personally, but
yeah. The way Jen Brown's talked about it, I don't know if there's any more lines she's recorded for red-haired woman.
It could easily just be Jean sees her in passing. We don't see her. We don't actually hear her speak, but we see the figure there, and she waves him off or something. Even if it's at the end as they're leaving August, she waves him off or something like that. But I think something like that would be a nice send-off for Jean's character arc here, and also add another bit of intensity to what may happen.
Dodge, there's no way Chapter 13 is just going to be epilogue and setup because of that post saying that this is going to be the biggest finale of RWBY ever. So, there's no way it's just going to be epilogue that. Something massive is going down in Chapter 13.
The only way you can have a big episode that is an epilogue if it's the end of a series, kind of like the stuff with the last episode of Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is an epilogue. The final stuff of Kingdom Hearts 3 that's coming out is an epilogue. You can't really do that with the middle of a series volume like this. So something big's going to happen, and I don't think it will be the Adam fight or the Cordovan fight because I can't see them being dragged out for 3 episodes.
No. I definitely
Which makes me severely worried.
Either the Adam Bumblebee fight or the mech fight is wrapping up next chapter. We're going to see the whole thing and it's going to be done. One or the other. The other one's only going to go halfway through. I'm going to say
Cordovan fight ends in the next episode because that could easily be sorted out with, say, the team going up against her, and especially Weiss and her knight. I think that's going to come into play. But the stuff with Blake, Yang, and Adam, that will start to build up, and then maybe once Blake gets Yang back into a right mindset and they move into the final arc of that fight, that will carry into the next episode. But also at the end of this episode, we'll see whatever's going to happen in August.
I think the thing that Jen was saying she was going to show us on Twitter is not actually to do with RWBY. I think it's actually to do with the film that she's just made. Because RWBY's not the only thing she works on, so I don't think it's going to be anything RWBY related.
And she already tweeted out about the stuff that she mentioned on Twitch about it actually being an actual person, not a spirit or anything like that. She's already covered that ground, so I don't really think she needs to say anything else.
Well, Dodge, it depends on the length of the remaining chapters as well. How long are they going to be? I'm expecting Chapter 13 to be a good 25 minutes, like Chapter 3.
Especially with how short these last 2 episodes have been, which is fine for their setup, but obviously that time and energy needs to go somewhere else.
Yeah,
and it has been the case for several volumes now.
And they did lop off Chapter 14, so that time has got to go somewhere. So theoretically, it should make the next 3 chapters a little bit longer. And especially the final chapter as well. So something huge is going down in chapter 13. One of these fights is wrapping up in chapter 11. If it's not the Adam and Bumblebee one, he's definitely dead in chapter 12. Because then I'm still going to say that we'll end up in Atlas by chapter 13. And I wouldn't mind betting that when they get there, Cinder and Neo could even be waiting for them, which wouldn't make sense for the timeline, but Ruby's timeline doesn't make sense anyway. So
what I speculate is like the volume starts to end and the guys are on the airship, they're heading into Atlas, they see Atlas and it's bad, like the lockup or everything like that, and that's the image they leave on for that. Like after credit scene, that is where we're going to see the situation with Cinder and Neo if it's not a situation dealing with August in the main volume.
I mean, I feel like they wouldn't build up so much Cinder Neo if we weren't going to see them actually, like...
I would agree, but it's that 3-week or how long it is timeline. There's not enough time that's been passed from the guys getting August and just having a day to sleep over and then go on to the stuff with Cordova for them to catch up.
Unless they time jump them.
Unless they also end it with Cinder and Neo on their travels to August and they see the Brunswick farm stuff and we get something from Neo there. But I doubt... While I could see Cinder and Neo being involved in the August stuff for what I'm thinking, it's more than likely a Grimm thing maybe or whatever, something like that. It could even be apathy, which is pretty wild.
I just don't feel like they would have spent all that time building them up to not do anything with them in the actual volume itself.
Well, but they also did like no build up for Adam this volume at all, so it is kind of a thing where like, you know,
Adam wasn't even on the poster.
What could they have done to build him up though without spoiling that he was stalking Blake this time? Like there's a reason we haven't seen him.
They released a character short.
Yeah.
He's the only non-main character to get a character short, so even regardless of how it's structured, that is the biggest way to promote him, especially because they kind of needed to rebuild some of his menace after the stuff in Volume 5.
Adam has no menace.
I don't know.
You say that, but you're scared of him.
Well, I'm terrified of him because I know what he's capable of, and we all know what happened last time. But at the same time, he's a broody child throwing a tantrum. But
sometimes they're the most dangerous characters.
Very destructive. So, the only other thing I wanted to mention about the scene at the end was the mist coming out of their breath when they were talking, which was a nice detail to add, but it sort of happened on the wrong beats sometimes, where the voice acting sounded breathy, but there was no breath coming out, and then at other points it didn't sound breathy, and you could see the breath, and I was like, I mean, it's nice that they even did that, but it sort of falls at the wrong moments sometimes. So something to work on. But it does help reiterate exactly how cold it is. But yeah, anyway, we need to wrap this shit up. So we've talked a little bit about our predictions for next chapter.
Also, Winter needs to show up at some point. She needs to show up at some point this volume. Granted, I think that's a chapter 13.
Chapter 13, I'm going to say for Winter. We're not seeing Jacques this volume. We're not seeing Klein this volume. We're not seeing Whitley this volume. That's next volume stuff. We might see Ironwood in chapter 13. I'm not sure though. Cinder and Neo, I'm holding out hope for chapter 13. But as far as Hazel and Emerald and Mercury goes, they're not showing up.
We might get like a small preview of them getting ready for their next mission, but that will be like an end of episode like small thing because we'll probably get one last scene with Salem getting herself like motivated and everything. Yeah. Kind of like in the end of Volume 5 where we saw that little scene with Cinder roasting Phantom Ruby, something like that, just to carry over as someone like monologues.
I think Emma Merck might be taking off by the end of the volume and just saying, fuck this shit, we're out. But there's also Tyrion and Watts to consider as well, because they were on their way to Atlas. So...
well, that's kind of why I think that we might
be
done with the villains.
When they get there. So...
I know. It's why I think we might be done with that set of villains for now, outside of maybe like a little montage-y type thing.
I don't
because it's like They've basically set up, okay, these people are going to Atlas. We'll deal with that next volume when they're in Atlas.
Especially with this volume having such a big input on Salem as a character. I think we need one last shot of her before we end it, just to wrap off
I'm sticking with
her.
my guns. I'm saying we're getting to Atlas by the end of the volume. I'm sticking to it. Because if I'm right, it's going to be satisfying as hell.
I think that even if they get there, it's gonna be a chapter 13 thing, and they're gonna do absolutely nothing. It's gonna be like Ruby sitting in a hotel room again. Like, nothing's gonna happen if they get there. So that's why I'm kind of like, eh. I wouldn't even really consider that them getting there.
I think in terms of what we would probably get from the first episode of the next volume, I think it would be better off if we see, like, the city that they would go to is locked up, or they're going to have issues with it. And it's like, yeah, that's the realization that things is not going to go over smoothly in Atlas. So something like that. And then episode 1 is dealing with the gang, getting to the city, getting out, and then moving on their way.
There's also the question of Crow's letter that he sent in the first chapter. Hopefully that's going to reach Ironwood at some point.
I think that would be a good way to, like, tune in quickly on Ironwood. He sees the letter, and then we see what his current mindset is, and we see maybe he's so strict and severe. It's like, okay, now I got to deal with this on top of everything else. Or we just see how far he's gone from being a well-meaning, strict person to someone who is just literally iron fist.
Yeah. So I think we should ought to wrap this up. So the Corner of Remnant is live at the moment, so I'm just going to put that link.
I think Arnold's stream is on as well.
Arnold is also streaming at the moment. Yeah, so we're going to wrap this shite up. Thank you, Dan, for joining us to chat about this chapter. Oh my gosh, the hype for chapter 11 tomorrow is unreal.
This has been a really good volume, and I really hope they stick the landing.
This has been incredible. I hope they don't do a volume 5 and fuck up the finale, but the fact that they lopped off a chapter because they went creatively,
they've learned.
This, shows me that they have learned from the volume 5
with all the good
finale.
steps that they've done to improve things. I feel more trusted in that.
I have so much faith
Plus,
in this
also,
volume.
The setup so far is just like, I don't see how they could fail at this point. Like, they truly...
Fingers crossed, we'll have to Wednesday.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. I'm so afraid for tomorrow. But thank you guys so much for watching the Boopcast this week. Please make sure you go and check out Dan on all of his social media. I will be putting the links in the chat right now, and they will be in the description of this video if you're watching this on YouTube. We are all Ruby Reactors. Our reactions will all be out at the time you're watching this podcast, so if you haven't seen them, please go give them a watch.
Hopefully.
Thank you to everyone for joining us. Thank you, Freelancer Amber, for hanging out with us too. And
Amber,
we'll see you next week for the Boopcast for Chapter 11 and our reactions to Chapter 12. Oh dear. Oh, I'm so scared.
We're in it. Endgame.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Later.